We begin with a warning from the Palestine Liberation Organization that the severe humanitarian crisis in Gaza could further worsen. The reason, the withdrawal of funding to the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees. Britain, Italy and Finland are the latest countries to put a pause on payments. Canada did so yesterday following allegations that UNRWA employees were involved in the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th. The UN is investigating.
The Secretary General is horrified by this news and asked Mr. Lazzarini to investigate this matter swiftly and to ensure that any UNRWA employee shown to have participated or abetted in what transpired on October 7th or in any other criminal activity be terminated immediately and referred for potential criminal prosecution.
The UN has already fired several staffers at the refugee agency over the allegations. The evidence for the probe was provided by Israel. Journalist Iris Mackler is on the story in Jerusalem. I asked her earlier if she knew what that evidence was.
Only in general terms, Linda. Unusually, I would say, for Israel, actually. They haven't put out the evidence that they have widely. They've plainly given it to the United Nations, but what we know, or what's been reported and sourced to Israeli officials, is that it came from interrogations. Part of the information came from interrogations of Hamas militants who took part in the October the 7th attacks and were taken captive. They weren't killed in the fighting. And so from their interrogations, some of the information is intel from that, and it includes evidence or information that UNRWA equipment was also used, as well as people taking part in the attack who were UNRWA employees. And I think the evidence must be compelling. And I say that, not having seen it, because of the UNRWA response. You know, during this conflict, we have seen the IDF making allegations that they've found tunnels underneath UNRWA buildings and saying that these tunnels were being used by Hamas, and there was very little UNRWA response. A returned hostage said that initially she was held by someone who told her he was an UNRWA teacher, and there was very little UNRWA response. So the fact of this instantaneous response, the firing, the suspending and investigating, and I think actually firing of 12 UNRWA employees suggests to me that the evidence, if we could see it, would be compelling.
And what reaction are you hearing to all of this from the Palestinians?
Palestinian reaction in broad terms that we've heard from the PLO, from Hussein al-Sheikh, saying that calling on the nations that have now paused their funding to change their minds because of the implications for relief right now in the Gaza Strip. And we've heard from Hamas, who call on all these nations, call on UNRWA not to give in, and I quote on their Telegram channel, to threats and blackmail, to Israeli threats and blackmail. And they went on to say elsewhere that what they think the UN should do is simply look after Palestinian people. And I think this is, it goes to the nature of UNRWA, because what we see is it's not a classic United Nations organisation, despite having UN in the title. It's funded by UN member states, but they give that funding independently, depending on how they feel and what their budgets are. And it's been running since 1950. It has offices in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Jordan, in Lebanon and in Syria, and its job is to look after Palestinian refugees. So it's a different kind of creature. In some ways, it's been a second government, particularly in the West Bank, and at times when there hasn't been another functioning government or organisation or authority, UNRWA has been it. And I think that means they've got a huge local hire, 13,000 employees just in Gaza. And what that means is that the local hire have local opinions. And in Gaza, I guess that means Hamas opinions. But there's a difference between having Hamas opinions and taking part in a brutal attack such as that on October the 7th. And I think it's because of that, because of the implications of UN employees, which is what they are, UN-funded organisation taking part in this. It's such a serious allegation that it's massive, and that's why we've seen this response.
That is Iris Mackler reporting from Jerusalem.